magnificent. Thank you so much. Now just recognize what a great mood Inessa put you in. So subconsciously over the recent half hour. Music is great. Welcome. So nice to have you. This is the final of the three-part series. And a lot of you have been complimenting the speakers, the program for having made the contribution to your life. And that's been the most rewarding aspect of putting something like this together. And I am hoping that in the not too distant future, probably after the Yom Tovim, after the high holidays, we'll have another Manifest series to offer to you on yet another theme, different set of presenters, and we'll find out a bit later tonight what it is that you're interested in. As I mentioned last week, whenever we operate during the course of a day, we look at the mystical cycle that governs our lives. And many of these aspects can be found in the parasha of the week, whatever it is that we're reading. And this week's Torah reading is the final book of Devarim, where Moses expresses a soliloquy that revises the totality of everything we read in the first 4 books. And one wonders, why is there a need for repetition? And an answer which I'll offer you, which the Rebbe suggested, is that whereas the first 4 books are instructions from Hashem to the Jewish people, we need a medium to earth it, to ground it. And Moses is the medium of being the grounding mechanism. In other words, he has to then say it through his own mind and through his own heart, and as it's put by the commentaries, through his own throat. And by having a human medium for something divine, it makes it accessible for us. So we've had 5 speakers each week that have been grounding information that they have been expert in so that you and I can actually follow it. And tonight, Jake once again will lead off with his final tips for sleep. And these will concern your environment, not green, but sleep.
Thank you once again, everyone, for attending. It's great to see even more new faces here. For those that weren't able to attend the first week, I discussed some of the important aspects of timing when it comes to sleep. So when to go to sleep, the best time to do it. Then we discussed some of the ways that you could change habits and behaviors in regards to going to sleep. And I believe that if you came to only one of my talks during the whole of this series, that this is really the one to pay the most attention to. And it's my favorite topic because it's one that you can do even if you're the laziest person in the room. Because all of these tips that I'll be able to give you about the environment are all things that are what I call passive ways of helping. So that is that you don't need to actively do anything. Once you've changed the environment in a certain way, unless you unchange it, that's it, it's done. So these are things that you only need to do once. As a result, there shouldn't be any excuses for not being able to do them. And these are things that can make a big difference. They're things that I've certainly implemented into my own life, so I know the impact that it can have. And they're things that, as I said before, if you pay attention to only one of the topics that I've covered, this is really the one because it is the easiest to do. And I wanted to start just by going over again, last time when I discussed behaviors and habits, we talked about the quality of light, so avoiding as much white LED lighting that you possibly could from both fluorescent tubes, household lights, but also things like phones, tablets, televisions. So before I dive any more into some of the environment tips, I just wanted to reiterate that those are all things that trick our brain into thinking that it's daytime. The white light lets our brain basically know that it's still sunlight outside, so that it's not the time to go to sleep. And the easiest way to remedy that is either to avoid the devices, so get the TV out of the bedroom, avoid going on your phone or doing emails or too much with a screen late at night. And if you absolutely must do any of those things, use the yellow light filter that's built into a lot of modern electronic devices, because it will emit only yellow light from the phone instead of the harsh white LED lighting that tricks your brain. So again, just wanted to lead off with that because it is a behavioral thing in terms of avoiding, but it is technically falling into that environmental side. So I just wanted to drive the importance of that home once again. So one of the first things to consider is to make your bedroom quiet and relaxing. Again, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? Who doesn't want to sleep in a bedroom that's not quiet and relaxing? But the fact of the matter is, not all of us have that luxury all the time. Anyone have noisy neighbors here? No, you guys are all lucky. Caulfield, you do? Yeah. I've had some. Yeah, you do? So there we go. There's a few around. Caulfield must be a little quieter than where I live. Anyone live like next to a tram stop or something like that, where you got those, 10-ton rhinos charging through? Yeah, I see a few of you, right? They're noisy as. So some of us, don't have the luxury of getting uninterrupted silence throughout the entire night. And there's a whole host of ways to combat this that if we brainstorm, I'm sure we could come up with 3 hours worth of material on ways that you could help to soundproof the room. And it's anything from double glazing your windows or putting up more insulation material. But one of the easiest ways, if you don't want to completely renovate your bedroom, is simply to eliminate noise as best as you can. Earplugs are very good. They're a very cheap, low-tech solution. Not everyone enjoys sleeping with them. I find the best way to combat noise, if your neighbors are having a party or if you live next to a tram stop and you want to try and eliminate it, is to really join in and add your own noise to the mix. And when I say that, what I mean by that is to add in a source of noise that is constant, of the same pitch and tone, in order to drown out any external noises. And there's quite a bit of psychology behind this, because the human brain will tune out external noise as long as it's constant. If you live somewhere, for example, like next to power lines where there's a constant low hum, after a few hours or a few minutes even, you will completely not hear the hum anymore because your brain just tunes it out as background noise. And the same is true here. This is why alarms on fire trucks and ambulances, for example, have 2 tones, right? Because you don't want to be ignoring that kind of an alarm. So you can do something as simple as, tune a radio in between stations and just let it play some white noise. Just at a low level, nothing deafening, but just enough to drown out any external noises. I find one of the best things to do, especially in the summertime, is just to use a pedestal fan. So no air conditioning, which is expensive to run anyway, but using a pedestal fan provides a low, steady hum. It also cools the room, makes it easier to sleep. Very, very easy tip. I often get asked about, well, what about things like, music, whale noises, the classic relaxation kind of CDs and tapes that you can buy. Look, they're fine for some people, but again, because the noise varies so much throughout the recording, sometimes it can be a little distracting, but for sure those work too, as long as you're able to get used to them. The next tip as well is to keep the room at about 16 to 20 degrees. This is actually the ideal temperature that human beings go to sleep. So for sure, be rugged up under your blankets, but the external ambient temperature of the room has to be at around 16 to 20 degrees. This is why often we find that we have such a poor quality of sleep in the summertime when it's really, really hot and we're all cooking. And you wake up after 8 hours and think, oh my God, it's like I didn't sleep at all. So that's exactly what happens. That 16 to 20 degree mark is really the sweet spot that allows sleep to work at its most efficient. The next thing that I want to talk about, and especially important to me as a chiropractor who's seeing a lot of people with issues with the nervous system, with the spine particularly, is to ensure that you have a good sleep posture. I was amazed when I got into practice the amount of people that I discovered slept without a pillow. Anyone here sleep without a pillow? You don't have to put your hand up. You can come see me at the end. But very, very strange. I'd never heard of such a thing. And so many people out there, anyone sleeping on a mattress that you know you should have thrown out 10 years ago? The chuckles tell me yes. These are things that, okay, fine, you've got to go to the mattress store, you've got to invest a bit of extra money, a bit of extra effort, but once it's done, that's it. You don't have to worry about this for like another 5-10 years. This is like one of the most important investments you can make in your life. A third of your life is spent sleeping. And people are out there sleeping on, $5 pillows from Kmart and the worst mattress that they can find that, they found on the side of the road, and it was good for their kids, and, it's comfortable enough, so they just put up with it even though the springs poke into their ribs. Nonsense. Like, it's so easy to rectify and make such a difference. If you can't afford the mattress, because those can run expensive, get yourself a good contoured pillow, okay, that is going to dip in the middle to support the neck and support the spine in a neutral position. The best position to sleep, by the way, is on your side, followed by on your back. That's okay. The worst position that you can sleep is on your stomach. So anyone that is a stomach sleeper, you have a problem, come sort it out. See me after. To the extent where they're doing studies these days that show that those that are prone to sleeping on their stomach may actually be at risk of more neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And the reason that we think this is because when we're sleeping on our stomach, we have to sleep with our head to the side, or else our mouth will be in the doona and we'll suffocate and die throughout the night. So as a result, we have to lie on our stomach with the head turned off to the side like so. And as a result of that, one half of the neck is put under maximum extension, one half is at maximum compression, and that actually changes the way that cerebrospinal fluid drains away from the brain. And the idea is that waste metabolites, which are the byproduct of normal brain functioning, can accumulate there and actually put us at risk of neurodegenerative disease over time. So very interesting research happening in the last few years. In terms of a mattress, I have no brand loyalty. I don't get commission from mattress companies to recommend anything. I generally recommend firmer rather than softer. You don't want to be sleeping on a marshmallow. And really anything that you find is firm but comfortable is generally going to do the best trick. Obviously, everyone's a little bit different. There might be specific examples where someone may need something softer, but 9 times out of 10 I'm going to be recommending a firmer mattress. So always go for firmer than what you find is comfortable in the store. Another very easy tip to do is to filter out all light. Now, I discussed a little bit about this before and in the last talk. Standby lights are one of the easiest things that you can filter out of your room and make a difference. So when I mean standby light, this is those annoying little red or green or blue LED lights that are on every piece of electronics now, often for no real good reason other than to glow and light up the room at night. And they're a big distraction when you sleep. Like everything from a 4-port power adapter has them these days, the little red LED. Televisions, which, look, you shouldn't have in your bedroom anyway, but if you do, they're going to have that red light. And getting rid of this is as simple as going down to your hardware store, buying a $3 roll of black electrical tape, which is completely light-proof, and simply just taping over every single standby light. The less distracting lights that you have in your room, the easier quality of sleep you're going to have. And this is really easy to do. It'll take you about 20 minutes, and it costs very, very little. In fact, you could probably do the whole house with the 1 roll of tape. But again, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of your ability to sort of pull yourself away from the distractions of electronic devices, even when they're switched off. Another tip, and this has really come out in the last few years of the benefit of this, is to use a heavy blanket. So you can actually buy special weighted blankets, and they're often recommended for like anxiety therapy, for example. But what they've actually found is that by having extra weight on top of us, and this works really well in Melbourne's freezing winters, the extra feeling of weight, such as a crocheted blanket or thick wool, whatever it is, you can buy a weighted blanket if you want to, actually adds a psychological element of security and safety, which is very calming for the mind, and as a result generally puts us at ease and makes it a little easier for us to fall asleep. So again, something that's very, very simple to do. If you're only sleeping on like a single layer of doona, try adding as many heavy things as you can to the blanket. in order to sort of provide more of a safe feeling when you're going to sleep. Very easy tip to do. I wanted to just finish off and round up the whole series with what to do if you can't sleep, or what to do if you wake up in the middle of the night. And because this is things that are going to happen, we're going to be wakened for one reason or another. The dog wakes us, or a child, or noisy neighbors, something. And if you do find that you wake up throughout the night and you can't straight away go back to sleep, the best thing that you can do is actually get up and just do something boring or relaxing. For me, if this ever happened, when I was in high school or university and I was particularly stressed, the way that I would do is that I had this collection of Enid Blyton novels given to me by my mum. They were just boring enough to send me to sleep every single time, as long as I wasn't reading one of the more exciting ones, like The Faraway Tree. But they were really, really good. It was like just a little ritual. I'd put on a very small, very low-powered light, and I'd just read a few of the pages, and that would usually send me off to sleep. But you have to get out of the bed and sort of just reset, do something relaxing, whatever it might be, and then go back. Have a drink of warm water or something like that. Whatever it is that you would do leading up to bedtime, just do it again if you find that you're sitting there after 40 minutes, not able to go back to sleep again. If you are the type of person whose mind absolutely races at night, I'm going to drive back in that tip of have a relaxing routine building up to bedtime. Do not sign off an email to your boss about the accounts, and the reports that are due tomorrow, and then go straight to sleep on the pillow. It's not going to work. You need to set aside at least a single hour of just you time, something relaxing, something preferably quiet before you go to bed, in order to allow the mind to switch off. And as I reiterated in the first two talks, try and do this without electronic devices if you can. Read a nice calming book, talk to a partner, wife, family member. Just do something nice and simple before bed, have a warm bath. It's going to make things a lot easier. Another thing that I wanted to drive in as well, just to finish up the talk, and then I'll be available for questions at the end, thank you, Laibl, is that if you are someone that's suffering from some kind of nerve injury, now when I say nerve injury, this is anything involving the nervous system, whether it be regular headaches, back pain, leg pain, sciatica, carpal tunnel, the list goes on, right? Numbness, tingling. Get it seen to if you're not seeing someone already about it. You don't have to see me, you can if you want to, but whoever you choose to see to get a neurological or musculoskeletal complaint resolved, do it. Don't put it off. Don't think, it niggles, but I'm not dead yet, so I'm not dying, haven't had to go to hospital yet. Stop putting it off, get it seen to. Because the same nerves that cause headaches, neck pain, shoulder pain, issues in the spine, directly affect the way our sleep cycles work as well. And I can't tell you the amount of patients that I've had where simply just by showing them a way to reduce whatever they're coming in for, they say, I can't believe how much better I sleep. I can't believe how much more energy I have. I can't believe, just how much more rested that I feel. Simply because the body's not having to fight an ongoing physical process of injury. As always, I'm available at the end. I'll be hanging around if anyone has any personal questions, if you want to chat to me about what I'd recommend in terms of a pillow, mattress, that kind of thing, I will be available. I'd like to thank you all again for making the time to come out. I appreciate that there's so many more interesting things that you could be doing on your Wednesday night, but the fact that you've all come out to learn about health and well-being, I think is absolutely deserves a round of applause. So you can all give yourself a pat on the back just for showing up tonight. And you've all got a take-home sheet. I want you to do as many of the environmental things as you can. Because if you do absolutely just one thing, it'll be those things tonight. You only need to do them once. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Jake. Isn't it amazing that as you were listening to Dr. Jake Bright, the things that he said are commonsensical. They're things that perhaps some of us would have come up with, but he's put it all together. And we lose sight of these simple aspects. Why? Because just as we're on the verge of discovering what we do when we are asleep, we fall asleep. Like people often ask me, do I sleep with my beard on top of the covers or underneath? And I say, I can't tell. I fall asleep just when I need to know. So I guess that's a good sign that I do sleep okay. Anyway, thanks very much, Jake. It's really much appreciated. As you've heard me say in previous weeks, physical self, spiritual self, mind self, emotion self are all interlinked into one holistic being. And therefore you affect one, you affect the other. I know that in our own day and age we seem to be much more fixated on the spiritual, and for good reason. Nevertheless, it's really interesting that in the Jewish spiritual teachings, health and wellness begins from the outside in. What you do with your body, in many ways, affects everything that leads to the psyche and beyond. And that's why we always make it a very significant feature to have physical fitness and aspects of physical wellness a central aspect of our life. It's a mitzvah as much as any other mitzvah. And I want to thank Dave for taking time out of his highly exertive day to come here and relax with us by getting worked up again. Thank you very much, Dave.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. Good to be here again, and I'm just going to do a little quick recap as well on things that we've spoken about so far, priorities, and the role that health and fitness plays in our priorities in life. For me, health and fitness is top of the tree. I don't really enjoy or get to experience all the other things as much as I would like to if I didn't have my health and fitness. So that's a big priority for me. It's sort of our only irreplaceable asset that we have. Houses, cars can be replaced, they can be bought again. Health, once it disappears, can evade us forever. We also spoke about the Gelbart's Gym 5 pillars of health. Exercise, these are not in order, they're all important. Yeah, if we knock one pillar down of a building, the whole thing can fall down. Exercise, diet, sleep, stress and toxins, and the effect on your health of scoring poorly in any one of those. So in terms of the benefits that exercise can deliver for us, again, I don't like going through the nasty ones. I like going through the practical ones. A steady flow of energy, calmness, clearer thinking, increased muscle and strength, weight loss and a lower waist girth circumference, and the role that that has in reducing our risk of diabetes and the complications of diabetes. A leaner, more toned, supple body, just enjoyment of recreational activities that we're already involved in, better sleep, and these are more non-medical, non-threatening benefits that we get from exercising. And if there was a pill that delivered all that to us, would we take it? I think so. Last week I sort of mentioned the two best recommended types of exercise to perform. One being low impact heart rate based interval training, which I gave a few options there of how to do. Tonight I'm going to concentrate more on resistance training and then how to make everything happen, how to bring it all together. So with resistance training, similar to last week, we need to surrender some time. 150 to 200 minutes a week in total. 1.5 to 2% of your total week, which represents about 22 to 28 minutes per day. Remember the analogy of the body being like an elastic band. If you put it in the cupboard, it stays the same shape. If we want to change the shape of our body, we need to give it a bit of a stretch very regularly. So I'm recommending daily, or if not daily, five times a week. We're more likely to stay in routine if we do things more often. So resistance training. Let's hone in on some of the benefits of those. Maintains your musculoskeletal system and prevents or slows down osteoporosis and bone degeneration. Very important for some of us. Maintains our strength to perform our daily tasks. For example, getting dressed. I've trained some people in my seniors classes who couldn't dress themselves couldn't put on their pants without standing next to a wall. With a couple of months of strength and resistance training, they were able to tie up their own shoes, put on their own pants, put on their own socks in the middle of a bedroom without holding on to anything. Improves the tone of your muscles and the appearance, and it improves your posture and preventing hunching that we get later as we age. The other good thing about resistance training is that there's no sweating involved often. So you don't have to get uncomfortable. You don't even need to wear gym clothing per se. You could pretty much do it with a loose shirt and just generally what you're wearing on that day. So it doesn't have to be such a dedicated go and get changed into gym gear effort. So some examples of some types of resistance training that we can do is weights training. Everybody's seen or heard of weights. I've got a few here at my feet. There's Pilates classes. So I consider that to be resistance training because you're always using some form of resistance there. There's resistance bands, which I have one of here. I'm going to demonstrate soon. There's swimming. Swimming's a good one because with swimming, you're actually performing cardiovascular and resistance training. When you pull against the water, there's quite a bit of resistance there that your body has to move through, and you have to use your arms and legs to pull and kick through there. So swimming's a really good activity to do if you know how to. And then there's hydraulic gym machines. Machines that work on hydraulic that don't have weights or bands attached to them. I often get asked how much, how many, how often. So I think if you just want to start to strengthen your body, tone your muscles, 10 to 15 repetitions. But the last 2 or 3 repetitions need to be under some amount of duress. You need to feel like you could do 2 or 3 more, but if you can do 20 more, maybe it's a bit light, and I'll demonstrate that to you in a minute. About 40 to 60 seconds rest between exercises, and then you want to be doing about 3 or 4 sets per exercise, and about 4 to 6 exercises per session. So I'll just go through that again. 10 to 15 repetitions per exercise, 40 to 60 seconds rest in between, 3 or 4 sets per exercise, and about 4 to 6 different exercises. So that, normally, if you're diligently going through that, 22 to 28 minutes is how long that should take, as long as you don't interrupt yourself by answering your phone or doing anything else. And then you want to balance your sessions from day to day. So if you're going to take the plunge and exercise every single day, a good way to do it is 1 day resistance, 1 day cardio. So you're looking at 2 to 3 resistance sessions a week and 3 to 4 cardio sessions per week. That gives you between 5 and 7 sessions per week. Remember, they're only 22 to 28 minutes long if you're going to do it every single day. If you want to double up on 1 day, that's fine. If you missed out yesterday and you want to do both the next day, that's fine as well. So I'm going to demonstrate a few really, really easy ways to exercise now, at home or outdoors, with no or very little equipment. Okay, so this might be an opportunity to take out your phone and maybe do a little bit of videoing. Okay, if you'd like to see a very quick, short example of how you can do some training on your own, then you might want to just video these and I can demonstrate them to you. So let's say you've got no equipment. Okay, you've got nothing, you don't want to invest in any, you've got nothing at home, and you want to do a little bit of resistance work, or if you're outdoors walking around the park and you'd like to add some resistance to your walk, here are some examples of what you could do. So I'll just use this, pretend this is a park bench. I'm going to buck it up against the wall. Okay, so tricep dips is the first one. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you're safe here, that you're not on a smooth surface where this could slide out from under you. And you just bring yourself off the edge, lower yourself up and down, keeping your back very close to the edge. Okay, they're called tricep dips. You might not be able to do 10, but you start with what you can do. Might be 3 or 4 the first time. Then squats, okay? So again, very simple, no equipment needed, just a chair or a bench. You basically stand up and then sit down very slowly. The most important part is the last bit where you want to place yourself on the chair very, very slowly and deeply. I don't want to miss. I want to hit the middle. Okay, Push-ups is the next one, modified push-ups. Push-ups are a very, very hard activity, but they're fantastic for your body. Again, you need a bench. I might just take this off and just speak. Is that a good idea? Thanks. Okay. So again, park benches are good. If you're going to use a chair or a stool, make sure it's bucked up against a wall. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'm going to try not to headbutt the wall here. Very slowly, with a straight body. Again, 2 or 3 might be all you can manage to start with. Eventually you want to build up to sets of 10, 15. Lunges is the next one. Now if you've got trouble with your knees, you need to be very careful with this one. And again, you start off small. I'll move over to the middle now. Okay. Take a step, bend both knees. Often, people will think that their back knee has to hit the floor. That's a little deep for me. Okay? I don't think you need to. I think if you just take a step forward, then make your direction down, bend both knees slightly. You might do 5 to 10 on each leg there, alternating. Okay, so that's if you've got, the last one, sorry, is a plank for the abdominals. So you might not be able to see me up the back, but you've got me on video maybe. Just keeping your body very straight, very flat. We don't want to be a pyramid. We don't want to be a hammock. We want to be like a plank of wood. And you might hold that for 20 seconds, concentrating on your abdominals. Okay, so you're going to imagine that somebody's going to come along and give you a bit of a tap in the rib cage, and you've got no protection there other than how hard you squeeze your abdominal muscles around the rib cage. So there's 5 exercises that you can do with no equipment. Indoor, outdoor, as you're walking around the park, really simple ones. Now if you do want to invest $50 to $100, you can do a hell of a lot with very little equipment. Okay, so I'll show you some examples. I've got about 7 or 8 here. We'll see how many we can get through. So using a dumbbell, again using our trusty bench here. 1 leg forward, 1 leg back. So I've got the weight in the right hand and my right leg is back and I'm just lifting up and down. Now if I do 15 of these and I feel like I can do another 15 straight away, then this is probably a little bit light for me. This is 2.5 kilo. I'd need something a little more. Most of the exercises that I've got here, once you buy 1 set of dumbbells, you'll be able to do all the exercises with the same set. Okay? So for me, for example, I would go and get a 10 or a 12 for all the range of exercises that I'm just about to do. The next one would be a bicep curl. So you can do it standing up. Standing up I prefer because you use your stabilizing muscles a lot more when you stand compared to when you sit. When you sit down, your core muscles in your abdominals and your glutes relax and you don't do the exercises effectively. So standing up is best. You can twist them a little at the top or you can just hammer them straight. Trying to move as few body parts as possible. Just the upper arm. Okay, next one. Shoulder press. Okay, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. If you have neck issues, if you have lower back issues, you need to be careful with this one. You don't want to lift too heavy. Straight up and down. And you want to try not to shrug when you do an exercise like this. You need to relax your neck, keep your shoulders down, and just press them so that they tap at the top. The next one is a bit of an aggressive one. You may need lighter weights for the next one. And it's a side raise. Okay, I'm already finding this a lot harder to do with 2.5 kilo than I did all of the other exercises. Okay, so if you've only got the 1 set of dumbbells, be careful with that one, do less. Okay, so that's all with 1 set of weights. If you, again, I'll be staying around tonight, so I can't assess each person's strength, but based on what you do and what you've done in the past, I can recommend how heavy you should go and buy if you're prepared to buy some equipment for yourself. Kettlebells, you can do lots of things with these. Some of them are dangerous. So not really, if you are not experienced with weights training, I wouldn't be, if you've never done any before, I wouldn't be going onto YouTube and looking at videos and then trying to repeat them without seeing a trainer first. Okay, because there's all sorts of fancy things online and they look fantastic and they're normally done by people who are very experienced. And I'm going to talk about injuries in a minute. We'll revisit that. This is an upright row. Sorry if you're videoing, you might have had to have paused there. Again, we want to relax the neck here and not shrug. Okay, and there's combinations of exercises as well, which are really effective. These come in all different strengths as well. Okay. You can get very light ones. This one's a medium. And you squat, like I showed you before, except there's no bench now. And then press. So it's a combination of the squats that we did and the shoulder presses that we did with the dumbbells. You could do that one with your dumbbells as well. Another way to combine exercises is lunge and curl. We did lunge before. Pause, bicep curl, swap legs. Lunge, pause, bicep curl, swap legs. Okay? Once you combine lower and upper body, you find that your heart rate starts elevating as well, and it almost can turn into a bit of a cardio session also. Dumbbell squat, shoulder press, I've shown you already using TheraBand. You can do it with weights also. Technique is crucial, okay? So it's really, really important that you focus on your posture, thank you, your breathing, activating your core and going slowly. If you're not confident, again, hire a trainer to make sure you supervise properly. Non-accidental injuries. So let's say you're walking around the park or you're climbing some stairs or doing some step-ups and you fall over and hurt your knee. It's an accident and they do happen. But with resistance training, you can cause injuries to yourself that are not accidents by using the wrong technique. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to do these exercises properly. So making it happen now, I'm just going to finish up quickly with trying to take all the information that we've heard and making it happen in your life. I like analogies, and I've got one that I created myself, and I came up with it when I retired from sport. And when I was playing a lot of sport competitively, a good 80% of the exercise that I used to do and training that I used to do was to improve my performance in sport. But when my sports career ended, I thought, am I still going to train? I got a bit worried about it. I thought, am I still going to exercise? I could really get myself out of shape here. I was quite nervous about it. And the one thing that I did was I got a dog. I bought myself a medium-sized Labrador, and now I was forced to exercise. So with my dog, I got a bum bag, and in that bum bag is plastic bags, dog treats, and a skipping rope. And so I've forced myself into exercising by making sure that I had to exercise. So everyone's got different lifestyle. Not everyone likes having a pet, but there are ways you can trick yourself into exercising regularly. Block out time and make a schedule for yourself. Tomorrow morning, tonight, sit down with a pen and paper and identify the times where you're most likely to exercise. Try to schedule it in then. Never start again. So if I've motivated you enough to the point where you're actually going to do something, make it the last time that you start again. I tell my clients that all the time when I see them new. I said, this is the last time you're going to start again. Don't wait for the perfect time. It rarely happens. I'm going to skip through a few because I know we're running short of time. Count your sessions. I use notebooks. My wife is going to Israel in 10 weeks. She'd love for her brother's wedding. I'm going to. She'd love to lose a couple of kilos. She's in pretty good shape. But I said, what you're going to do, you're booked into the gym 4 times a week, she is. Every time you go home, you've got a whiteboard above your desk. Every time you do a workout, go home and just put a mark on the whiteboard. Count them. By the time we go in October, you'll have done 40 sessions. And it's very motivating to see your scoreboard of how many sessions you've done on the whiteboard. She'll be looking at that every day. Invest in some equipment. Make your gear visible, okay? Don't lock it in a cupboard. If you put it in a cupboard, that's where it'll stay. I've got skipping ropes everywhere. They're in my car, they're in my tennis bag, they're in my gym by the 100. They're in my dress room, they're in my doggy bag. Where else are they? Anyway, they're everywhere. I don't go a day without seeing a skipping rope, and it's just a constant reminder for me to exercise. And the most important point is that if you're going to increase your exercise tomorrow, hopefully you are, I'd like you to notice the effect that it has on you. So when you get up tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock and you go for your walk and you do your weight session or your non-equipment resistance session, which I've just shown you, I want you to, later in that day, notice your energy levels, notice your efficiency, notice if you're happier, and notice if you're calmer. And if that does happen, I'd like you to take a mental snapshot of that and just think, could I link that to the exercise that I did this morning? And hopefully you can. And I'd like you all to enjoy all the benefits. I mean, I'm asking 7 days a week, 28 minutes a day or 22 minutes a day. It sounds like a lot, but I'd like you to give it a go and then check yourself and see if you're feeling any different. And just like Jake, I'm available tonight. I'm happy to speak to all of you individually about your programs and issues that you have with your exercise, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Jake. Such practical advice. He did say, Dave, thank you. He did say 7 days a week, and I suppose that includes Shabbos, Dave, and that means you have to walk to shul. Skip to shul? By all means. Absolutely. No. Menachem and I, for me, 23 minutes, for him, 19 minutes each way. There's over 38, 40 minutes a day just there on Shabbos alone. Non-technology day, exercise day. Great. Thank you. That was really wonderful. Wish you a mazel tov in 10 weeks' time. It's actually so fortuitous that we've got Jake and Dave right around the corner here. You turn right on Hawthorne Road and you get to both of their addresses. So it's so terribly convenient if you're in the area. So do make sure you have a chat, pop in, have a look, speak to either, both, and take them on. In order to be able to make our body work well, there's also a biofeedback loop. The way we use our mind affects our body. The way we use our body affects our mind. Dave spoke about the relationship in terms of physical exercise, and he didn't mention these terms, but the endorphins that it releases as a consequence, which makes you feel much better. I know when I swim every morning, straight after that, I feel so much better than when I got up. No one likes to get up real early in the morning on a cold morning these days, and it works really well. But how do we actually maintain that mentally, mindfully, during the course of the day? And also, we're living in a society which wants something new happening constantly. Do we repeat things wisely? If we do repeat a mindset, does it get boring? Does it grow? Is it good to do it at the same time every day? We're talking about meditation. And Menachem's going to share with us today's final session in the use of meditation wisely.
So over the past 2 weeks, we've just been having fun, but because this is the last week, I have to leave you with some very real-life tips. Otherwise, everything that I've done with you is just a positive memory, which is like a holiday. It's great to look at it in photos, and you're not sure. So while you'll be able to tell people, yes, I went to Spirit Grow and I meditated, that's not actually going to help anyone in this room going forward. So what I'd like to do this evening is give you a few tips for those who don't meditate regularly, and for those that do meditate more regularly to find, I suppose, renewed confidence in what it is that you're doing, and for everyone else in between to just tell everyone, I knew that already. A few popular questions that get asked. I'm just going to start with this by way of introduction. When is the best time to meditate? And the answer is whenever. Just meditate. You'll notice that, who here has ever Googled the question, when is the best time to exercise? Just raise your hand if you've ever Googled that question. When is the best time to exercise? I'll take it from the smiles that your hands aren't working, but you know what I'm talking about. So people do this search. It's one of the most common searches online. When is the best time to exercise? And you'll find all sorts of different answers. You should exercise in the morning, before eating, and you should exercise da-da-da. And then people don't exercise because they don't know which is the correct time. So actually, once you start asking that question, you should realize that you're beginning the process of fooling yourself and you're looking for an escape to not exercise. Now the same... Yeah, I know what I'm saying. Don't worry. I'm very present with myself. The same is true... Oh, well, suppose lucky I'm not telling jokes here. The same is true of meditation. The same is true of meditation. People will tell you to meditate this time, that time. Just meditate whenever you can. Just make a start. Now, the reason why I start with that is because as people are fearful of exercising, because it's hard, because if you haven't moved, it's challenging, so too, to sit down silently, you've got the full expectations that your mind is going to be empty, you've got the full expectation that you're going to be relaxed, you've got the full expectation that this is going to be a cinch, because what could possibly be so hard about sitting down and breathing? And then you try it once and it doesn't work. It's the same problem as what I discussed last week that people have with exercise. So we have to do this in the most pragmatic way. Find a time and begin. And the way you begin is as follows. And this is actually something I didn't read it in a book. I didn't study it in a course. I can't even say that I tried it. I wish I knew this when I first started dabbling. There's one of the best meditation teachers in Australia happens to live in Melbourne. And that teacher is not actually a meditation teacher, but he teaches meditation. That doctor happens to speak in Spirit Grow from time to time, and some of you may have heard him speak, Dr. Daniel Lewis. And he has a fantastic method for helping people to get into a rhythm of meditation. And it starts with a week of not meditating. You sit down in a chair at the same time every day, and then you get up. So for 1 week, let's say it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you finish lunch, sit down in the chair, and get up and move on with your day. The next week, sit down in the chair for a minute. And only the week after that do you begin the meditation exercise. Now, where did Daniel get this wisdom from? Well, I'm not sure if he really did, but I'm going to invoke the Talmud. The Talmud actually talks about a 4-week period as being the amount of time to set a habit into motion. But the truth is the Talmud also talks about 3 times in a row in a systematic pattern as already beginning a new habit. So I'm not going to tell you to do this for 28 days. I'm going to tell you to do this for 3 days. And then see if you can still do it for a 4th, 5th, and eventually 28 days. So the first thing is pause, stop at the same time every single day. The next is close your eyes and breathe. We did that last week. Just close your eyes and breathe and listen to the breath, just like we did last week. I'm just spelling out what we did last week. By doing this, you will create an acceptance for what has to happen. By doing these 2 steps, you will create an acceptance for what has to happen. The acceptance that you are going to pause, and then the acceptance that you are going to breathe with no other expectation. There is no expectation. People who have expectations never reach those expectations with meditation. It's a bit like money. People that expect to make X amount, when they get it, they actually expect more because early on they revise their expectation. So all you want to do is in that meditation session, you want to sit down and meditate. The next thing is stop trying to meditate. Stop trying to meditate. I'm sure you've heard this a million times. Stop trying to meditate. Don't try to look like the person in the Instagram photo. Don't try to look like the person in any book. Just be you. Sit in the chair and see what happens. go with the open mind of, let's see what happens. Let's see if this works. And the reason why you want to do that is because no two meditations are actually the same. Because the factors that will make up the meditation session from one time to the next will be different every time. And you'll say, no, it's not. I do it every day at 2. But every day at 2 may be the only similar factor as every other day. But did you go to bed the night before the same time as you did 2 nights ago? Did you eat the same food for breakfast as you did yesterday? Did you skip a meal like you did yesterday? Did you just drink a coffee unlike yesterday? Did you just have an argument unlike yesterday? Did you just receive good news unlike yesterday? And therefore, all these other factors which lead to mental stimulation and emotional stimulation are not the same calibration day to day. If they were, you'd be a robot. If you're a robot, you don't get stressed. If you don't get stressed, you don't even meditate. So you have to accept. You have to accept. Today is me. Now, is there any basis for what I just said? And the answer is yes. In Judaism, we have this thing called prayer. It's something that got hijacked by a whole lot of musical people at some point, and it became a choral experience. Then it got hijacked by the dogma lovers who said it's something you have to do every day, and that why? Just because you have to do it every day. And then there are the spiritualists who said prayer, it's a massive meditative journey. And at a certain point in that journey, every morning we say these words, that the world is renewed every day like the very first time. And what we need to do is accept that today is not a continuation of yesterday. Today is linked. It is a piece that has been linked to yesterday's piece. So yes, it lines up nicely. That's part of the creative energy of the world. But it is not dependent on yesterday. This is a new moment in of itself, which has new factors, new variables, and therefore I need to accept this and not just continue on with whatever was yesterday into this moment. And therefore, we can explain the cliche of no meditations are the same. And that you don't compare one meditation to another, nor do you go into the meditation with the expectation of anything, because what are you expecting? It's the very first time you ever meditated today. Now, do you want my opinion as to when the best time to meditate is? I'll tell you. The very best time to meditate is actually first thing in the morning, provided the first thing in your morning is not 10 a.m. If it's 10 a.m., then do it any time you want. The other time I wouldn't recommend, and I'll explain why in a sec. The other time not to meditate is right before you want to go to sleep, unless you want to fall asleep during the meditation, in which case you're not meditating, you're just practicing to go to sleep, which feels the same, but it's not meditation. When you meditate, you don't want to be falling asleep. You want to be stilling the mind, which is completely different to sleep. And if you are tired, it's 10:30 at night, you go, I haven't meditated, I guarantee you're going to already be on low oxygen, so you're going to probably nod off and fall asleep. And you'll say, I meditated for 12 hours last night. I'm a guru. I could bottle this stuff and sell it. Please, I'll charge you $50 to come sit on my couch with me every night, 10:30 at night. Don't meditate right before sleep because it's going to be really hard. So when do it? First thing in the morning. And I said this a few moments ago, first thing in the morning is what? So I think in Melbourne, it's sometime between 6 and 7 a.m. And I'll explain to you why. That time, it wasn't completely arbitrary, but I have had to adapt an idea in Kabbalah to the message of today. The Arizal was a great Kabbalist who lived 450 years ago in northern Israel, Tzfat. Yesterday was the anniversary of his passing. And he talks about that throughout the day there are different energies in the air. And the energy that he warns his students of is the energy of Bilbul, chaos. And he says, when does chaos enter into the atmosphere in your city? At the period that people begin to rise to go to work. That is when the chaos levels in the world erupt. And he says every place will be different. But when that happens, there is going to be a bilbil in the air that even if it is quiet in your surrounding, your mind will not be able to be as still, because you will have this bilbil passing through your atmosphere, which is going to corrupt your mind, which is going to make a certain chaos exist within your own demeanor, even though it's got nothing to do with you. So if we think about it, when are people beginning to really rush off to work? I know there are people who do the night shift here. I know there are people who do everything. But if you think about it, when does peak hour traffic on Dandenong Road, when do the trains start becoming the most full? After 7 a.m. After 7 a.m. Maybe you can push it till 7:30 a.m. And you'll notice this now. You'll notice this. On a Saturday in Melbourne, things are more still. No matter what's going on in your life, it is more still. So when should you be meditating? When there is the least distraction, i.e. 6 to 7 a.m. You'll be like, oh, I can't. Let's go to bed earlier. So you've got to set yourself up. You can't just start meditating. You've got to set up your day for this to happen. So what you're going to do from now on is sometime in the morning or whenever it really suits you. So now, I don't want anyone walking out, I don't get up 6 to 7, so I guess I won't be meditating. You just do it whenever. I was just telling you the optimal. It's like, you get those people say, you can wear whatever good sneakers, you wear New Balance and Asics and this, or you can eat this food, that food, that. Just eat. Eat colourful food. Make sure it grows from the ground and it hasn't got too many long ides at the end of the ingredients. Just start somewhere. I'm telling you the optimal. Grow your own food in your backyard. Meditate between 6 and 7. So you sit down for the first week at the same time every day. So make a habit of ring, the alarm goes off, you walk downstairs, do not drink coffee, or the proverbial downstairs, you sit down, you get up, you go make your coffee. The reason I say don't drink the coffee is because it's a great way to get your heart rate up. Your heart rate goes up, your mind goes, oh, I'm anxious, and you start experiencing anxiety as a result of drinking coffee. Really, you've just got a chemical process taking place inside your body. In 2 weeks' time, you will do what we did last week. You will follow your breathing. Remember we did that last week? We just listened to the breath in, the breath out, the breath in, the breath out. And because, thank you, and because you're not getting a 2-minute meditation, we're going to be going over that bell. But because we came here for meditation, come, let's meditate. So when you're ready, close your eyes. And I want you to be conscious of what I'm saying. Place your feet on the ground, your hands in your lap, your back supported by the chair, your neck upright, your head resting on top of your neck, not drooping, not with your chin leaning into your chest. Drop your shoulders and breathe. And with that, you have the ultimate posture of meditation. You don't need your legs crossed. You don't need your fingers in any particular position. You are in an optimal position. Now let's come to our breath. We're noticing as we breathe in, the pause, the out breath, the pause, and the cycle of these 4 stages. Just following the 4 stages of your breath. As you do so, you'll notice 2 things in the distance. 1, the sounds that fill the space. They are constant and forever changing, coming and going, flying right by you, from behind to in front, or from one side to the other. And I want you to notice them, not think about them. You're thinking about your breath. You're noticing the sounds and accepting that they are part of this experience. Let's see if you can do that. Focusing on the breath, noticing in the background sound. It's not a part of your experience. It's just happening around you. The second thing is happening in your mind. You'll notice thoughts that come and go. None of them are of any consequence to this moment. So you're focusing on your breath, and as thoughts pop up, you notice them just like the sounds in the room. Let them come and let them go. Staying with your breath. Noticing the sounds, but not engaging with them. Just staying with your breath as you breathe in, you pause, you breathe out, and you pause. Just become aware of the seat that you're sitting in, the feeling of the floor under your feet, your hands that are resting in your lap. Notice the temperature. In a moment, I'm going to invite you back into the room. So just prepare that in a breath or two, I'm going to invite you to open your eyes. Come back into the room now. Open your eyes. And I'm going to give you a moment to just readjust. Saw that? Did anyone struggle with that meditation? Just raise your hand if you struggled with that. Okay? Raise your hand if you're able to go along with it. Okay, I'll take that as a success, right? Now your homework. Your homework is, because there's a break in a moment, your homework is to turn to the person next to you or behind you and see whether they are trustworthy, that you can exchange phone numbers, so that in 1 week you can say, I sat down, and then the next week, it's just 2 SMSs, one each way. The next one says, I sat down for a minute, and the last one after that is, I sat there breathing, noticing my breath, observing my breath, noticing the sounds of the background. I did it. Thanks for your support. That's it. 3 SMSs. Don't even save their number in your phone. It might be a bit weird. See if you can do it. Thank you very much.
Okay. By the way, for those of you who missed out on some of those video physical exercises of Dave or any other matters, these programs are going to be online very soon. Thank you very much, Cecil B. de David, for having recorded and done all those wonderful bits and pieces while Dave was demonstrating. We're going to take a short break with some wonderful, wonderful drinks. Recipe will be up on screen, but just before we do, can I take this opportunity of thanking our special guests who are visiting for 3 weeks Spirigo, sharing with us a little token of our appreciation. Dave? Jake? Stephen. Very special. These people give of their own time, donate their time to us, and the best we can do to reciprocate is follow their advice and their regime. Let's take a short 5-minute break. The recipe of what you're drinking is up on screen. Leah's recipe for this week. Kindfulness, the play on the word mindfulness, drawing in our capacity for chesed, giving, sharing, contributing, the default flow of the universe, which the human being is the analog for, and that's why we feel so great when we're helping others, contributing and sharing. That's been almost a summary of our first two sessions, plus hints that we were giving in the process. I want to change the pattern of presentation and begin today with a short video to do with technology. That will be the theme in an inverse way that I'm going to share over coming minutes. But just as a carryover, I came across a very, very interesting article this week, very, very recent, which you may find interesting. Israel's study finds positive emotions may shrink cancer tumours. Technion researchers stimulated dopamine production in brains of mice, say it boosts immune response, reducing growth size by 50%. So, a new study by Israeli researchers, look at that date, that's very recent, has found that positive emotions, kindfulness, may help limit cancer growth. The study, published Friday in Science Journal, was conducted on mice by research team at the Technion and focused on the role of the brain's reward system in fighting tumours. Researchers said that while previous studies have found a connection between one's emotional state and the body's ability to combat cancer, they mainly focused on negative emotions and not on the impact of positive mental attributes on cancer biology. The mechanisms by which emotions affect the immune system and its response to the tumour were not well understood until now. One regulator of the system's activity in the body is myeloid-derived suppressor cells. They suppress the immune response to certain threats, critical function, preventing body from overreacting. It's also believed to suppress the body's ability to fight tumours. But in their new study, the researchers artificially stimulated the reward system in the brains of tumour-bearing mice, raising their levels of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that helps regulate pleasurable feelings. I mentioned that in terms of my morning swim before. They then identified a response by mice's immune system with a reduction of that activity. After 14 days of continuous treatment, the researchers identified a 50% reduction in the size of tumours. Given the central role of the reward system in positive emotions, these findings introduce a physiological mechanism whereby the patient's psychological state can impact anti-tumour immunity and cancer progression. That's a really powerful research result. Now, I'm not saying that the reason why we need to practice things like kindfulness is in order that we be healthy, but health is a wonderful, wonderful manner of providing a reward. Of course, we're talking about it in two ways. Spiritual dynamics, being aligned with the cosmos, and in a more foremost method, altruism, our higher self coming to the fore. And therefore, it must be good for the body. It can but not be good for the body because it's in line with everything. Therefore, we need to keep practicing it. By practice, 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 something that Menachem said earlier in meditation, it becomes us. But I want to go back to that first video. And we all talk about the negative effects of contemporary technology, especially the way we interact with computers and the like. And I want to talk about the positive possibilities. I may have said this before. I'm not afraid of technology. I do not think technology is bad. Technology is neutral. It's how we utilize it that creates the value. If those stats that we saw earlier on produce negative results, it's not because the computer is bad or Facebook is bad. It's that we misuse the technology, the same way as we may misuse the natural elements of the universe. The same materials can make up the explosive, which is used to build dams or destroy people's lives. It's how we utilize it that creates the value. Technological advancement is inevitable. It's the product of human curiosity. We'll always play with the building blocks of life and rearrange them. We'll always produce new forms. And as a consequence, that's called technological evolution. We have to utilize it. We have to be wise. Can technology be used for kindfulness? Absolutely. Today we have the capacity to be in communication and in contact with many, many more people than we did once upon a time. Our capacity for acquaintanceship is much more profound, not friendship necessarily, although the use of the written word to augment friendship is of course a very valuable tool, but doesn't make the friendship. But acquaintanceship, most certainly so. There's probably quite a few of you who are on Facebook who have hundreds of friends, if not thousands. Of course, friends is used in a specific term in Facebook. But it does mean that you have the capacity with your voice, your written voice, to influence others, subtly and to a great degree. And therefore, if you utilize the technology positively, being able to spread the concept of kindfulness by being a good exemplar of humanity through the written word, you are affecting others. I think technology can be leveraged to a great extent to help the state of the world. We know that it's been utilized to allow people who are slave-trodden, to use an older phrase, in certain dictatorships and the like, to have their word out there so that you and I can know about their trials and tribulations. But I'm talking about use in the positive sense, being an influencer, taking the highest side of self and being able to transmit that and endorse and inspire others. So although it's a response to isolation, perhaps, as many people have said, the reason why we find refuge through the technological means of communication is because it's a reaction to isolation that comes from living online, and we have natural longing to connect and are unable to do so, maybe because of personality aspects or situational aspects and the like. But don't allow it to be the enemy. So, one day each week, say something that you think will be helpful, whether it be for humanity or for that particular individual. There are 4.3 million posts on Instagram, hashtag Kindfulness. And these document small acts of compassion. Another example is the hashtag Pay It Forward, where people are challenged to complete 3 random acts of kindness a day. So you can see that there are already groupings of people who are enlisting technology as a mechanism of creating positive change both in the world and with your neighbor, and certainly reinforcing yourself in the process. Some of you might be familiar with the platform GoFundMe. Familiar with that one? Where people ask to be funded for their own pet projects or for their pet concerns in society, and people make contributions. You can go online, create your GoFundMe for your special project to help others that may need financial backing, and people will back you. Of course, it can be misused or used well. That depends on your sense of ethics, morality, your character, and the like. Like anything, you can either misuse or use things wisely. We've had cases in GoFundMe of strangers giving terminal cancer sufferers a last fishing trip, paying for their holiday, helping disabled people who have been attacked in the street. There are a lot of people in need, and the opportunity to know about that and help that, once upon a time, even a generation ago, was very rare. You didn't hear about it, let alone have the mechanism to be able to assist. Today, technology has leveraged the information so that our higher self can come to the fore and assist. And that's absolutely wonderful. So rather than constantly berating what technology is doing to us, let's take responsibility and in so doing, make the world a better place through our own one individual effort, our voice. Technology has made our individual voice much, much more powerful than it was once. Utilize that power. Okay, exercises for this week. Quite unrelated to what I've said. These are continuation of exercises. I'm going to conclude with 9 altogether, and these are the 3 for this week that I'd like you to do. I'd like you to practice to soften your voice as you speak to people or respond to people. Feel it coming from the heart. People feel more comfortable with quieter communication, and often it bespeaks confidence in the place of empty vessels making most noise. Become conscious of the level of your communication. Become conscious of the level of other people's communication to you. Read into loud voices. Loud voices generally mean, I need control, I need to influence you to my point of view, I need you to be like me, and the like. But maybe we're doing it also, so look at yourself at the same time. And spend a week consciously lowering the voice level. Another one for this week. Say sorry. Have the courage to say sorry. If you've snapped at someone, never your spouse, but it's someone else. If you've snapped at someone, feel cleansed by going back, apologizing, saying sorry. It's an absolutely wonderful practice leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where we say the grand sorry to the Grand Master. And finally, another exercise for the week, be kind to unkind people. Difficult one. If you succeed, it will elevate your mood. It'll make the other one think twice about themselves, and it'll create a ripple effect of kindness. Now, the difficulty about being kind to unkind people is that there's a voice that always says within, in a state of quote unquote righteous indignation, they don't deserve my kindness. If you say that, remember, that's your ego talking. It's your judgmental self. It's you playing God. It's you making the decisions over the life of others. If others have their problems, you are there to help them. You are not there to isolate them. You are there to influence them. You are not there to be their judge and make them feel bad about it. You want them to learn from you. So if you succeed once this coming week, just once, not every day, once, to be kind to an unkind person, I assure you, you will never look back. Okay, they're my thoughts for this week. And there's one more little video, David, that we want to play at the end of this session. And that'll conclude my presentations for these 3 weeks.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, No, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
The interesting distinction between empathy and sympathy, which is well worth thinking about. I'm not sure that I altogether agree, but there is an important distinction nevertheless. Just the whole notion of connection, which is the basic principle of humanity. Everything in the world and in creation seeks to connect. Anything that connects tends towards good. Anything that disconnects tends towards bad. Just a general rule of thumb. Of course, you'll come up with exceptions, but we can even work those exceptions in. Okay. Now, Dr. Stephen Dudakov. Food. One of the strange activities of human beings. To take things from outside of us and put them inside of us. It's really a very strange phenomenon. And therefore, if we're going to exploit the environment by internalizing it into our body, surely there is a moral approach. That's not being discussed in this session. But at the same time, there's a healthy approach. And the healthy approach must accord also with a moral approach for future discussion. So, for example, when do you eat? Stephen, do you eat on the clock, or do you eat according to the biological clock? Leave it to you.
Thank you. Okay, so the first session was basically about what not to eat. So we quickly talked about reducing sugar, getting rid of the vegetable oils, stopping margarine. The second session was what to eat. Too much to go through now, but we will summarize that along the way during this session. But today I'm going to talk about when to eat, and a little bit at the end about why, to encapsulate all of this. But that by itself is at least a 3-hour discussion. So the old paradigm is to eat 6 times a day. Eat your 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, tea. Then there's your little snacks in between, the morning tea, the afternoon tea, and perhaps a snack during the evening or at night. And the old paradigm goes with the old pyramid. The old pyramid that if you were here at the first session, I said that you take and you turn it upside down. Because what the old pyramid had was at the base, the bread, the cereals, the rice, the pastas, and the fruit groups, and the vegetable groups. So what you can see here, which is about 70% of your diet, is all carbohydrate. And then the rest. And if you're going to eat carbohydrates 6 times a day, something's going to happen. You see, carbohydrates stimulate the release of insulin. Really important hormone. We'll talk about a lot of that, and you'll hear a lot about insulin. But the thing is, if you eat, we release insulin. However, different amounts, different types of foods. So if you eat a carbohydrate, this is a very crude example, but basically, if you eat carbohydrates, you're going to release 100 amounts of insulin. It's going to stimulate it to a degree of 100. Whereas if you eat a protein, it'll stimulate it about to the level of 25. And if you eat a fat, it'll stimulate it to the level of 2. So if you're going to eat 6 times a day, stimulate insulin, stimulate insulin, stimulate insulin, stimulate, stimulate, stimulate. Just like Jake said, when you've got a noise in your ear and it's there all the time, after a while the body learns to ignore it. And that's what the body does with high levels of insulin. High level of insulin, after a period of time, prolonged period of time, the body learns to ignore it. That's called accommodation. And if that happens, and insulin has the important role of keeping the sugar levels down, then after a period of time, they start to rise. And the body says, we can't allow that. Strict rules on where the sugar has to be, right? It can't be lower than about 3.5, and it can't be more than about 5.5 or 6. So it raises insulin higher, forces the sugar down. But then after a while, the body gets used to the higher level of insulin. Up goes the sugar again. And so on. Raise the insulin, force it down. Need more insulin, force it down. Need more insulin. And this story happens over 25, 30, 35 years, and eventually it can't keep it down anymore, and the sugar creeps up above that 6 level. Suddenly now, you're glucose intolerant. That's the Western medical term for it. Glucose intolerant. And as things progress, eventually the level's above 7. So if you get 2 fasting levels above 7, you're diabetic by definition. But being diabetic with a level above 7, or whether you're above between 6 and 7, called glucose intolerant, or even before that, when the sugar was normal, but your insulin levels were high, and you were insulin resistant, you're still not normal in that stage. And all of those are just a spectrum of the one disorder. The only question is, where on the spectrum are we? Now, insulin plays another very important role. It doesn't just control sugar. But what it also is, it's the, I call it the famine hormone, the store it away for later hormone, because when we eat food, it says, great, here's some food. Okay, what are we going to do? Let's take it, let's store it away for later, in case there's a famine tomorrow or the day after. And our car goes for 1 second, no petrol, stops. Human body, it can go for weeks, even months without food, as long as we've got water. Why? Because we've got our own reserves of energy, which we carry on us. So if we eat food, the body releases insulin. It says, great, let's take it. Quickly takes the carbohydrate, stores it away as a bit of glycogen in the muscle and in the liver. But the rest of it, all the carbohydrates and all the fats, it breaks down and turns into its own fats that it needs. And it stores it away as fat, adipose tissue. Now, if the body's making something, what it's not going to do is break it down at the same time. So insulin stimulates those enzymes that makes adipose tissue. And what it does, it blocks the hormones that break it down. So if you're trying to go on a diet and you're not lowering your insulin, you're fighting against your own body. But if you go on a diet where you drop the carbs, so you drop the insulin, now the fat can freely just break down, and you're working with your body. And for those of us who may be metabolic in any way, one way or another, whether we're just insulin resistant or glucose intolerant or diabetic, if you attack that disease process at its root cause by dropping the carbs, dropping the insulin, thus dropping the symptom of high sugar, you can control, stop the progress, even reverse and cure diabetes and help yourself to lose weight in a much easier way. So the new paradigm, what I tell people who come to me and they want to lose weight, now what we do on this diet and how you do it or what you want to achieve depends on what it is you actually want to achieve. Is it to lose weight? Is it to treat or help with diabetes? Or is it just to eat in a healthier way? So the new paradigm that I tell people quite simply is 2 rules. If you're hungry, eat. And if you're not hungry, don't. Sounds crazy, huh? How on earth can you lose weight doing that? Well, it works, and brilliantly. Why? Because when you're eating carbs all the time, you need to eat all the time. 3-hourly. Who hasn't suffered? You have a fantastic breakfast. By the time lunch comes, for myself, I would have that fantastic breakfast. I would have my cereals. I would have the muesli, there'd be the milk, maybe a bit of toast with some honey. Come lunchtime, got the shakes, got to eat. Angry, hungry. There's a word for that. It's hangry. That's what carbohydrates causes, that hanger. I've got to have that meal. When's it coming? If, however, no carbohydrate intake whatsoever, and we're eating fats, which cause satiation, then something magical occurs once you've been on this for a period of time. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You don't feel hungry. There's a lot of reasons why. It has to do with some peptides. It's got to do with the peptide YY. It also has to do with insulin, because if we have high levels of insulin in our body, what it does, it also blocks another hormone called leptin. Leptin is the satiety hormone, making you feel satiated, feeling full. So if you drop your insulin, you now release the leptin and the body can now hear it. Suddenly, we feel satisfied. We feel full. And fat adds flavor and it slows down gastric emptying. Thus, it's surprising how much you don't have to eat that meal when the hungers come, because they actually don't come. You get a gentle reminder, oh, it's time to eat. The little ghrelin hormone comes along, says it's time to eat. It'll do that usually 3 times a day because we've trained it to do that. And it's a signal that lasts for all of 20 minutes before it's going to go away. So the new paradigm, what to eat, this is the new pyramid, turned upside down. So essentially, the healthy fats and veggies, so you've got your healthy fats, including coconuts, avocados, olive oil, butter, raw nuts, raw organic vegetables. With the protein, ideally, as we discussed, grass-fed, but also if you can get it, organic meat and poultry, the organic pastured eggs. Now, fish, if you can get it, wild Alaskan caught fish, salmon, raw organic dairy, etc. So with fruits, limited, grains and sugars, minimal to no consumption if possible. So this is typical for the low-carb, high-fat way of eating. Now what happens with a lot of people when they start eating this way, because they don't feel hungry, they actually start playing around with when to eat by missing meals. Now, should you miss a meal? Well, if you're not hungry, what's my rule? Don't eat. And then what they're doing is a thing called time-restricted eating. So if you miss breakfast, as an example, so you've had lunch, tea, miss breakfast, lunch, tea, you've actually had a 16-hour fast and 8 hours of eating. 16 hours fast, 8 hours of eating. 16 hours of not needing to release insulin. 8 hours of eating. And it's so easy to do because you're just not hungry. Missing breakfast, very simple thing to do. That's called 16-8, time-restricted eating. So that's the 16-hour fast, 8 hours of eating. Now, there's a word for you. This is the future. It's also what was awarded the Nobel Prize 2 years ago in medicine. Autophagy. Autophagy, self-swallowing, literally meaning eating yourself. Because if you fast for 16 hours, something magical happens after 12 hours. Think of this. We've got the intestinal tract. When you eat food and you go through your normal day, and even if it's 8 hours between a meal, between tea and breakfast the next day, we've got an intestinal tract that there's still food in there and it's still moving its way along and it's still being absorbed. So all the cells in the body always have nutrition being delivered to it. Food's coming in, and it's always coming in. It's always in a state of being fed nutrition. If after 12 hours of fasting, suddenly nutrition's not being delivered to the cells, it starts to do something remarkable. Housekeeping. Okay? It turns around and says, okay, there's no food coming now. Well, let's look around, let's see what needs fixing up. So it looks at the organs which aren't working very well and all little organelles, and it starts repairing them. It says those ones are no good. It breaks them down and rebuilds them. This is housekeeping. This is something to help regenerate the cells. And it only occurs roughly after about 12 hours of not eating, so that the cells can change from the mode of nutrition's coming, I've got to deal with it, I've got to put it away, handle it, to, okay, don't have to do that anymore. Let's turn around. Let's fix the inside of the cell. An incredible and an extremely powerful thing for the body. So intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, is much easier to do if you're fat adapted. Something that's very hard to do when you're a sugar burner. We all know what it's like on the religious days when we try and fast, just a 25-hour fast. My God, how hard is it? If you were a fat burner, it wouldn't be that hard. Now this little thing which I showed last week, and I talked about the fact that about between 16,000 and 8,000 years ago, man changed because roughly 10 to 12,000 years ago, he started farming. And it changed our anatomy. We actually shrunk 10 centimeters. Our jaw changed so that our teeth didn't fit in our jaw properly anymore, thus wisdom teeth had to be taken out. There's two other stories to that picture as well, because have a look at this guy. Over 60% of Americans are overweight or obese. Over 60%. And I don't know the figure of Australia, but I don't think it's going to be that much different. But the story I also want to look at, this is a 2.5 to 3 million year evolution. And how did we eat during that 2.5 to 3 million years? And yet, we've been eating low fat, high carb since the late 70s, early 80s. And yet, we're called the fad diet. We've only been eating this way for 60 years. And as a consequence of that 60 years of eating, that's occurred. The last 2.5 million years, we ate that way. But for those detractors of the people who are proposing low carb, high fat, or paleo, or keto diets is, oh, they're a fad. They're just new. They're fly by night. They'll go away. Look at the history. Tell me which diet is really the fad diet and what has been the consequence of this fad diet. Oh, that's better. Now, why? These diets work, in essence, as I explained, because they're anti-insulin. Less carbs stimulates less insulin release. Insulin stops fat breakdown. And this allows weight loss and insulin resistance reversal. Why? Insulin resistance is the main cause of cardiovascular disease. This I took from the Baker IDI, which is the International Diabetes Institute. Together, released with Diabetes Australia, they released a whole booklet all about diabetes, and why it has to be treated and how it has to be treated and all of this. This is from their booklet. 65% of people with cardiovascular disease have abnormal glucose metabolism. That is underestimating it. 65% are only those who are diabetic or pre-diabetic. It's not even including those who have normal sugars but high insulin. And why is that a problem? Because insulin is pro-inflammatory. And that's why I told you to get rid of the vegetable oils, because they're pro-inflammatory. And it's why I said to reduce the omega-6s and increase your omega-3s, because omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. And it's inflammation that blocks your arteries, not cholesterol. Cholesterol has been demonized, and wrongly so. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have a role to play, but it's this big. It's which cholesterol, and I'm not just talking about LDL. It's a lot bigger story than that. Inflammation is the major key driver, and then it has to do with a lot of other elements. Lower your insulin, and we can help reverse this particular problem. Oh. So, there's a thing called metabolic syndrome, or insulin resistance, another name for it, or metabolic, or syndrome X, as it was once known. And these are the signs of it. So if you've got a big tummy, they always say the big tummy's bad. Too much fat in the tummy, it's bad for you. Well, it is because of what it's there by. And what puts that big fat tummy there is high insulin with insulin resistance. So if you're men greater than 102 or women greater than 88, that is one of the things of metabolic syndrome. Triglyceride levels above 1.7, HDL cholesterol's low, which is the good cholesterol if it's low. If you've got blood pressure or a fasting glucose over 6.1, they're 5. The definition of metabolic syndrome is any 3 of those 5. And if you've got that, then your metabolic health could be problematic. And then you need to do something to affect that. And it's not take tablets. This is a dietary disease. How do you manage a dietary disease? With diet, not tablets. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's so special. I mean, if you had your doctor sitting down in front of you and providing you with all the explanation that's necessary for you to take action, this would be most ideal. And I really want to thank you for being a doctor to all of us over the recent 3 weeks. I want to just, before we leave, thank a few people. I want to thank our wonderful volunteers, and Sarah in the back who coordinates them, all the way from the absolutely marvelous welcome that you receive. How many of you got hugs? No, you didn't? All right. We'll talk to the volunteers about that. Right through to Inessa, who plays that music after a hard day's playing at the Australian Ballet. Right through to my Leah and Ilana, who prepare the drinks for you and the recipes and the like. Right through to the office staff who send out the communications and make you aware of everything, and everyone who creates the program, which is yourselves and ourselves in tandem. We need your feedback forms because that's what gives us the clue as to how to proceed. And in the back, these will be collected on the way out as you collect your notes for this week at the very, very same time. Thank you for joining us. Be well. Feel free to come forward and chat with our wonderful presenters.